got some developments in business news as well to bring you now. There are signs of thawing relations, really. This is between the US and China. The two powers set to sign a new trade deal tomorrow. And our business editor, Stephen Carroll, is here with more. Stephen.
Stuart, ahead of the signing of that deal, the United States has dropped accusations that China is manipulating its currency. Now, applying that label of a currency manipulator to Beijing has been part of the escalation of tensions between the world's two largest economies, as it happened last year. But the US Treasury Secretary says that China has now made enforceable commitments to not competitively devalue the yuan. Washington also says that Beijing has agreed to share information on how it sets exchange rates. China exerts strict control over its currency, and it had been steadily depreciating over the course of the trade war, but in recent months it's begun strengthening again as the two countries sought a deal. Well, meanwhile, China's trade rebounded in December, according to new figures. Exports denominated in yuan rose by almost 8% in December. That's the first increase in exports since July of last year. Imports up to over 16%. These figures for December compared to December of the previous year, but exports were actually up for the whole of 2019. A shift too in trade relations with the United States. We know that President Trump was very unhappy about the trade surplus that China had with the United States. That's dropped by 8.5% in 2019 to just under $300 billion. Let's take a look and see how that news is going down on the markets today. Not a lot of movement at the open in Europe. The FTSE 100 had been boosted yesterday due to weaker sterling. It's opened pretty flat today. Interestingly, shares in mining companies, usually very sensitive to Chinese news, they're up today, boosted by those Chinese trade figures. But Paris and Frankfurt both starting the day in the red. In Asia earlier, the yuan had jumped significantly as the US removed that label of currency manipulator, but it didn't boost the markets in Shanghai or in Hong Kong into positive territory. There were gains, though, in Tokyo and in Seoul. Here in France, it's day 41 of the transport strikes, and while passenger services have been hard hit, so too have freight trains. Operators in the sector are losing an estimated €1 million a day, and there are fears for many of those firms' survival. Solange Mougin has the details.
Inside these freight containers, there are auto parts, furniture, merchandise for supermarket shelves, tons of goods that are stuck at this rail yard.
The problem is that this train is currently stopped here. Its final destination is Italy, and the border crossings are still partially shut. It was supposed to leave at 5 in the evening, but it's now stuck here.
These freight trains aren't stopped because of striking train drivers, but because of protesting signal operators. The freight trains travel long distances, and if just one pointsman is on strike, shown as black dots on this map, then hundreds of trains are stuck.
The short-term consequences are dramatic. With 80% fixed costs for the freight companies, this means that some will not be able to get past this.
Are some transporters going to close?
Yes, some businesses have cut working hours. Since they don't have big reserves, they're struggling financially.
The freight branch of the SNCF has been hit particularly hard. They've been losing around €1 million every day during the strike. And the timing couldn't be worse for an already struggling sector. Train shipments have dropped by half in the past 15 years, from a fifth of transport to under 10%, even though the railways remain one of the most environmentally friendly methods of shipping.
The car makers Renault and Nissan have both restated their commitment to their alliance. That's despite the reports that they were planning to end the relationship. Renault's chairman, Jean-Dominique Senard, telling the Belgian newspaper L'Echo that the alliance is not dead and that it is nowhere near the point of collapse. Nissan has also put out a statement saying that it was in no way planning to end the 20-year partnership between the car makers. Both companies, though, have suffered since the arrest of the alliance architect, Carlos Ghosn, on charges of financial misconduct at Nissan, charges which he denies. Stuart.
Thanks very much, Stephen. Stephen with Business on France 24.